This is an LA Times Studios podcast.
Cops rarely get charged with crimes, especially on the job. They, however, do often get internally punished or accused. Well, like, for instance, the LAPD has their whole own internal justice system where they charge you basically not criminally, but like with these like offenses internally. And they have their own little internal court where you have these like three people. They can be cops or they can be civilians who sit in judgment.
But what's the end result? You still get to be a cop?
Sometimes you do. I've actually had cases where the chief wants to fire the cop and it goes to the panel, which is an internal thing, and they say, no, we'll give him 10 days suspension.
Hello and welcome to LA Crimes. I'm your host, Madison McGhee. Today we're joined by friend of the pod, potentially best friend of the pod, if I do say so myself, Richard Winton. Richard, welcome back for another deep dive.
I'm glad to be here, and I hope I'm the best friend.
You're if this was my space, you're my number one friend.
Good.
So we have a very interesting story you recently covered today involving an LAPD officer who, believe it or not, was involved in a kidnapping.
Yes, it's very interesting. He was a full-time officer. Then he became a reserve. While he was reserve, he also last December committed a kidnap, home invasion, and crypto robbery.
Wow. Well, that's your one-sentence teaser for this episode. But before we get to that story, I want to introduce a special segment just for you because you are a special guest. We've named it the Richard Winton Special, where we go through a story that you're most excited about covering right now. So, Richard, tell me about a story that you're following.
Oh, we had a really, really bizarre weekend car chase. Car chases are a big Los Angeles thing. Like, literally, they're a big thing. I mean, many years ago, I think there was an episode of Seinfeld where they, like, showed some LA car chase. And, you know, it was a big thing in the show. But they really are a big thing here, and people watch them. But we had a spectacular one this week. And we did some investigation and found some more out about it. But basically, in this car chase, these two individuals carjack an F-250 white Ford truck up in Lancaster, and they take it, and they actually shoot at one of the owners who tries to prevent them. And they drive off, and the sheriffs start chasing them. But then when they get to the freeway, the freeway which runs down from the Antelope Valley, the CHP takes over, and they start chasing them again. And, you know, they obviously realize, hey, these guys know what car we're driving. So they decided to get another vehicle. And then at some stage, they decided, why don't we carjack a big rig? So they literally carjack a big rig and start driving it into Los Angeles with the, you know, all the lights and sirens and the helicopters chasing them. And then eventually they get another truck. They decide, oh, big rig is a little hard to drive. It's probably pretty tough. And they decide, oh, we'll steal another Ford truck, and they steal that truck. At this point, they know they've got loads of cops chasing them.
Okay, so hold on a second. They're switching cars. Was this planned along the way, or are they just thinking on their feet?
They are thinking on their feet because they have helicopters overhead and police cars in their rearview mirror. Now, when you shoot at people, the police cars don't stay as close, which gives you a little bit of space. And especially in the words of a former CHP chief who I spoke to, this was a very, very dangerous chase because these people, they drove the wrong way on the freeway. They drove at high speed. They opened fire on their first victims. And it was pretty clear that they were a pretty serious threat.
LA is known for our traffic, among other things. How are there so many high-speed chases on our freeways when there's cars everywhere?
Well, I don't know if you noticed since you've been living in Los Angeles, these car chases tend to happen at night. It's almost like they're timed for the nightly news. You know, the evening 10 o'clock broadcast is often filled with half the segment being someone bombing down the freeway with lights and sirens in their pursuit. But, you know, they rarely get away. You know, it's a pretty rare event. And that's what makes this one a little special, because eventually it seems they probably called some fellow criminals and arranged an escape plan. So what they did, once they'd taken their last truck, they snuck down below the freeway on the just off the 101 towards East LA at Mission, jumped out of that truck, let it roll, and apparently scrambled into another vehicle with their cohorts and disappeared into the night and escaped.
And they're still not caught.
No, they're not caught.
That's like a scene from a movie. Have you seen the movie Now You See Me?
Yes.
The magic movie where they do that with like the truck and they like swap trucks and then they don't know. That's like, how do you, I mean, I guess I'm not a criminal, but how do you think that quickly in such a high pressure environment to go, okay, I'm going to call my friend. We're going to meet here. We're going to swap cars. Then we're going to get out of there while there's sirens, police chasing you, helicopters overhead. I mean, that's...
It looks like in this case, these criminals have become aware of the police departments, the sheriffs, the CHP, the LAPD. When the chase gets bad, the policy these days is to back off a bit, rely on the helicopter overhead to keep watching where the person is, and then move in at the end. What they knew here is if they went under an overpass and were hidden for a few seconds, that helicopter wouldn't see them. Later, in the aftermath, one of the local businesses captured a video of them literally jumping from the car, showing how they escaped. But, they're basically exploiting, the fact that because people have been getting killed in chases, bystanders get killed because these cars come at high speed. Police cars can hit things just when it's happening this fast. So basically, there's a sort of back off and let the helicopter watch them from above now in LA. Well, they exploited that.
LAPD is really relying on their helicopters for lots of things, as we've discussed in past episodes.
In this case, it was probably sheriffs and CHP. But yes, there's a lot of reliance on helicopter policing here. In fact, when I talked to a former head of the CHP locally, he suggested that the local LA cops aren't possibly the most modern. He says in other cities already, you're starting to see drones pursuing the suspects. He says if a drone had been here, they'd have seen what they'd done and they'd have moved in quicker. So he thinks in the future you'll see drone pursuits.
Wow. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's what
story.
we can look forward to. we can look forward to the drone live footage.
I always worry about when I hear about the drones, the birds who think the drones are other birds, and then they go up to the drones, and that just sounds so sad.
Yeah, the drones have blades.
Yeah, the drones are to birds what AI relationships are to humans. They're like, oh, look, my friend. And then it's not.
Yeah.
Not real.
We've all seen Terminator.
Well, on that
it's pure
note,
coincidence in Terminator that the more deadly Terminator happens to be dressed as a LAPD officer.
Well, you watched the video, right?
Yeah, they just jumped into basically the rig at some point and got control. Initially, they couldn't.
How does one steal a big rig? And there's actually footage of this high-speed chase. But how does this happen?
It's the same way you'd carjack a car. Basically, people don't want to stick around when you've got guns or weapons or you're very threatening. So it's in the end, the driver jumps out, they jump in. And they just grab the thing. And they literally went the wrong... We have images, you'll see here, of them going the wrong way on the freeway with a big rig for a little while. Obviously, they couldn't drive it very well.
Yeah.
You could just tell.
And they got rid of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, they got another vehicle. Common sense said, hey, I'll go back to my usual Ford truck. I
mean, just imagining being in my car and someone comes up to me and is like, get out, I need it. You see that in movies, but I'm what would you do if someone's like, get out, I'm about to take your car? If they have a gun, you get out. I mean, of course, but I just can't even imagine being in that situation because you see it sort of dramatized on a movie, but that happens in LA. I mean, that could literally happen to either of us on the freeway on our way home. And it's just weird to think about. Most of the time, when it does happen, it tends to happen in
congested traffic situations where the suspect gets stuck and then they're at a junction and they decide that they're dumping their car and grabbing the car 3 cars ahead. And obviously, here's the other thing for those criminals. As a side note, being in a car chase and all that, usually with a stolen car, doesn't result in a huge penalty, surprisingly, in Los Angeles. But the minute you carjack someone, all the crimes involved with that are tremendously high value and are going to put you in prison for a long time.
Wow.
So that's my advice. Never carjack people if you're a car thief.
And that's been How to Jack a Car with Richard Winton. Thank you for joining us. After the break, Richard and I will get into his latest burglary case involving an ex-reserve cop, a kidnapping, and a theft of almost $200,000 in cryptocurrency. So if you want to learn how to do that, we'll see you after the break. Cooler days call for layers that last, and Quince is my go-to for quality essentials that feel cozy, look refined, and won't blow your budget. Think $50 Mongolian cashmere, premium denim that fits like a dream, and luxe outerwear you'll wear year after year. These are the pieces that'll turn into your fall uniform. I'm eyeing their cashmere sweaters. They look designer level, but cost a fraction of the price. And the quality, honestly, just as good, if not better. Because Quince partners directly with top-tier ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, they deliver luxury quality pieces at half the price of similar brands. It's the kind of wardrobe upgrade that feels smart, stylish, and effortless. Although it doesn't get too cold here in LA, I still find myself needing a stylish jacket on those chiller days. And this year, I'm looking to grab the 100% leather oversized bomber jacket or the featherless quilted long puffer jacket for those colder nights. Find your fall staples at Quince. Go to quince.com/LAcrimes for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/LAcrimes to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/LAcrimes. Welcome back to LA Crimes. Richard, let's get into it. Who is Eric Halem, and why did he need to kidnap a man for cryptocurrency?
That's a very good question, one we don't know the entire answer to. But we do know who Eric Halem is, or what was to some degree. Eric Halem, for about 13 years, was a regular police officer at the LAPD working in the Valley. Then 2022 becomes a reserve officer. And because he's, at that point, opening a car rental business for high-end cars like Lamborghinis and Bentleys. But then, some reason last December, he decides he's going to become, allegedly, a kidnapper, home invader, and cryptocurrency thief. So he and a crew he seems to be leading break into a Koreatown apartment with a man inside. Once they break in, force him down, apparently have him basically in a hostage situation, and then force that man, like you've seen in many a movie, to basically put his crypto codes in and transfer all his money to them. He and Eric and a cohort are basically doing this while 2 people outside are the getaway drivers. And they steal a bunch of jewelry and valuables and stuff. And this all happens just after Christmas, like 3 days after Christmas. And they disappear into the night, leaving this guy behind. It's not clear whether they really knew Eric Halem or knew who he was or what the whole circumstances are. But basically, for months, this went unsolved. But in the meantime, Eric had some other problems. It seems that his car business may have not been doing so well, or he certainly had some issues with insurance. So Eric rents out very high-end cars. When I say high-end, I mean the top of the line, those spectacularly colored Lamborghinis you see in LA to celebrities and stars, and Bentleys. Well, while he's renting one of these Bentleys out, it gets smashed. And $200,000 worth of damage, apparently. But it turns out, so he files an insurance claim, but the insurance claim doesn't get approved He hasn't got the correct insurance. So what he does instead then is uses his personal insurance to pretend that his brother smashed the car instead 3 days before and tries to get away with this.
Whoa. So he's filing 2 separate claims. One gets denied, so then he just refiles under different circumstances.
Yes. And LAPD, because he was a reserve officer, got tipped off to this and started investigating and then brought in the state insurance officials. And that's when Eric Halem's story started to unfold. Because I think that led to a more in-depth examination of Eric Halem's behaviors over the years. He was known inside the LAPD for being, different, a little... he was running a lot of security operations. He knew a lot of celebrities.
He worked with Randall Emmett.
Yes, he worked with Randall Emmett. That was one of his security jobs.
Fellow grifter.
Allegedly. Allegedly an interesting individual, let's put it that way. And he's basically a guy who had this whole business seemingly, how bad was it? Well, that brother who he said they both end up getting charged with insurance fraud by the state. They got charged here.
Wow.
Now, that looked bad, and that led him to lose his badge at the LAPD as a reserve.
A month later, though, right?
Yeah. But things got a lot worse come this month when what he didn't know is the elite robbery homicide division of the LAPD have been secretly investigating him because he hadn't got away with that kidnapping.
So the night of this robbery, kidnapping situation, there's 2 people inside and there's 2 getaway drivers. What do we know about anyone's connection to the victim? How did they know that, if they broke into this apartment, they would get cryptocurrency? What's the connection here?
They seemingly had inside information. They knew this. Now, Eric Halem moves in wealthy, is connected to a lot of wealthy people. He rents cars to a lot of wealthy people. He kind of knows about who they are. He also provides security in a lot of wealthy people situations. So it's clear that he used his insider knowledge to come across this target. Now, we don't know if there's a personal connection at this stage. A lot is not known about how he targeted this individual. And there's also a really obvious question, which is, so basically he and another man who, we don't know a great deal about, but and then 2 other people are waiting outside as the getaway drivers. But in quick succession, they basically burst into this apartment, break in, threaten the guy. He's accused of kidnap for ransom, which is basically where you don't actually have to take a person away to kidnap for ransom. But if I make you basically enter your bank accounts, well, in this case, nowadays, crypto accounts, here we're talking $200,000. This is a lot of money. And basically give it to someone else and you just transfer it to another crypto account. It's not traceable. That person doesn't even know where they transferred it. So this was a very fast, quick crime. The biggest question right now, which we do not know the answer to, obviously, is, was it his first time? And this is a guy, the day he did this, he still had a badge. So what has he done on the job? Wow. The questions are already sort of getting there about, was this the first thing he'd done criminal? Well, you also now know he did this, fraud. The interesting thing is one of the other people who was in this situation where one of the getaway drivers seems to also been accused in a civil suit of being involved in some of this kind of car fraud stuff.
Oh, interesting. This has happened before, I'm sure, where cryptocurrency gets stolen and you catch the person. What's the payback situation? Because you can't actually trace whose account it went into. Yeah,
it's not clear that it's all being recovered. And the crypto is making it easier for people if you just move it around, it's not traceable. Thieves love crypto. It's the best thing ever.
Thank God I don't have any. For now. You can't steal from me.
But so he's obviously, the question is, Did he really just start as a kidnapper and home invader, or did he go for lesser crimes before? Right now, he's kidnapped for ransom in California is basically just below murder in terms of crimes.
Wow.
So the sentence here, if he gets convicted of these charges, which include kidnap for ransom, kidnap, and 4 counts of robbery, it's basically a life sentence.
Wow.
So
and how old is this guy?
He's 37. He left the LAPD really young, which is very unusual, just so you understand, because basically they get a lot of pension and benefits to keep going.
Yeah, so what does it mean to go from being a regular police officer to reserve?
Basically, regular police officer works regular shifts, but reserve officers can basically, they can fill in shifts or they get paid very, it depends on the relationship, but they basically, you can continue to be an officer. You have to do the shooting thing. You do some shifts occasionally. And there's a lot of reserves who basically do it for nothing. They don't do it for the money. They just do it to help the community. The question here is, what was he doing it for?
Right.
It turns out he's also running, this was a pretty high-profile car business, Obviously, he got some money somewhere to buy like a load of Lamborghinis and Bentleys.
Yeah, I'm just imagining his LinkedIn profile of like police officer, luxury car rental company, kidnapper. Like, what a resume.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more questions and people connected to him. I mean, the other people in the police department are getting questioned. No one's been accused of doing anything wrong. It's more like guilt by association.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've talked to cops who said that, hey, I worked patrol with him, and he had some they say, the cops love to say this, he had some red flags, which means he did something on the job which made them go,
Right.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to be a snitch.
No.
Not even a cop.
Not even the cops. He also has that. There's a couple of images of him around, and they're all like headshots, like movie headshots. So he fancied himself.
Google him to see what he looked like, and was like, am I looking up a police officer? Or am I looking up someone's like actor's access? Like, yeah, he seems very.
Yeah, he seemed to be very aware of how he looked and how he,
Well, he was hanging out with movie producers, so maybe he wanted his next LinkedIn would be actor.
I mean, what we see here is he's basically in that sort of very flash lifestyle. He's, driving high-end cars, hanging out with the celebrities, working security. He's just, he's got his photo on his headshot. He's got that headshot kind of version of LinkedIn. He's more, he's looking for his next IMDb gig, as they say. They're like.
Well, when we come back, we'll get a little bit more background on Eric Halem and how he got caught. Welcome back to LA Crimes. I'm here with Los Angeles Times reporter Richard Winton. So, Richard, how did the police narrow down that it was Eric Halem for this home invasion?
We don't entirely know. We got to tell the truth there, because robbery homicide division, they're pretty spooky.
They keep their cards close to their chest.
Oh yeah, they're the people in the movies for the last 50 years with the hat. Going back to the Hat Squad. They don't tell you a lot. They act like they're very close carrying people. They're like, hey, I don't show you my hand entirely. But here's an interesting insight. The first there were 4 people arrested here. 2 of them, the getaway drivers, were arrested in May and kept in custody.
And do you think they ratted him out, or?
They were sitting there a while. When you see people sitting there a while in custody on kidnap charges, remember we talked about how high the allegation is, and then they, wait until like August to take in the 2 who actually did the work, the so-called put their hands on. It kind of tells you that
There's some deal being struck, potentially.
Possibly, or they know something. And it also probably likely points out that the getaway car could have been a weak point as well, because somehow they knew about those two people first, it sounds like, before they knew about Eric and his cohort inside.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how this all unfolds, because this is a developing story still.
Oh, yeah. I think with the big question is, hey, is this going to be the single crime, or is this going to turn out to be a series of crimes committed by Mr. Halem and a bunch of these individuals? Did they do other things? Is this their first rodeo or not? Because it's very rare that anyone sort of just starts off with home invading kidnaps.
Yeah. When cases like this come up in trial specifically, there's a lot of, character. They really paint your character for a jury. So he worked with Randall Emmett. In what capacity was he associated with him? And why is Randall maybe not a great person to be associated with these days?
Well, he's got a reputation and he's known. Obviously, when you have jury trials, you don't want to be known to be associated with someone who has a lot of issues. And he basically did security stuff. But I don't know how that means he's his friend, because in LA, people are really friendly with their security. You'd be surprised. They like the people who know everything about them.
Yeah. Well, they're the ones who hear you on the phone calls. You get off, you're venting to them. They're the only person there. I mean, they collect secrets.
Oh, I know people who work security, and they told me more about the people they guarded than anyone else.
Did Halem have any history with crime prior to these two things on record? I mean, there's potentially more to come based on his behavior, but there's no other record of any criminal activity.
No, you can't, because he's a cop.
Right.
Now, does that mean internal affairs? So at the LAPD, they have a massive internal affairs operation, which is constantly investigating people for stuff, like constantly. And they have to police the police. And that's a big job in LA. And so... I feel
like that's a big job in any police department.
Well, it gets much bigger in LA. Some places they don't investigate, let's tell the truth. But in LA, there's a lot of investigation of cops from all kinds of stuff. And supposedly there have been prior allegations, involving things, but they didn't materialize to the level of him actually getting caught. There's also a difference between sort of bad behavior on the job, and actual clear crimes. And here, he's involved. He's already charged with. I mean, he's got like 4 or 5. He's got like, I think 7 or 8 felonies right now he's accused of.
Well, when you're a cop, bad behavior on the job feels like a minimization of what it potentially could be. Like, there's bad behavior at like this job, but if you're doing bad behavior as a cop, that feels more significant than us retaking an ad re-record or something.
Yeah. So basically the difference is cops rarely get charged with crimes, especially on the job. They, however, do often get internally punished or accused. Well, like, for instance, the LAPD has their whole own internal justice system where they charge you basically not criminally, but like with these like offenses internally. And they have their own little internal court where you have these like 3 people. They can be cops or they can be civilians who sit in judgment. But what's the
end result? You still get to be a cop?
Sometimes you do. I've actually had cases where the chief wants to fire the cop, and it goes to the panel, which is an internal thing, and they say, no, we'll give them 10 days suspension. So we've got cops on the job who've done some bad things, who just got 20 days.
Of what, paid leave?
Yeah, for like doing something really pretty
vacation?
Bad. They usually, if the worst comes to worst, they get the unpaid leave, which is really rare. But yes, firing someone from the LAPD is very, very hard. And same with the sheriff's department. About 25 people get fired annually. Now, to fire really bad.
Yeah, like Define really bad. Like, what's something that gets you fired?
Well, so for instance, we've had cops who don't get fired even though they got 2 DUIs. They still keep their job. Really bad is like planting evidence. Really bad is taking something from some suspect. Really bad is like someone takes something from a home while they're investigating a burglary. I mean, really bad is domestic violence incidents. We get a lot of the most common problems in the LAPD are offenses are like multiple DUIs, drug usage, you name it, it happens. Domestic violence, though, is a pretty high one. I mean, I've had crazy incidents. We had, and then you get what they call is, so I'll give you an example. So we had a commander who, while driving home from a bar or a party, possibly with another person, female in their car, somehow ended up on 3 wheels, with one of their wheels basically, like you see, with spurting like sparks. And somebody sees this on the freeway and reports it, and the CHP will go looking for him. And they eventually find the car abandoned with like basically 3 wheels down in Carson. And this someone has come and picked up this commander, who most likely we can guess might have been drunk or something. And there was a female in the car. They've all disappeared. That commander gets accused of a bunch of stuff internally. Before anyone can decide to terminate him or demote him, demotion is another method, he retires. Surprise, surprise. This happens often. I mean, we've had other crazy ones. We had another commander who was with their adjutant. The adjutant was so drunk that they were so drunk they passed out in a car in Glendale. This is an LAPD unmarked vehicle, and the car rolled into another car and hit it like slowly. And the cops came up and found them passed out drunk. Then the commander, there's a video of this, by the way. The female commander then, when they tried to remove her from the car, she was not the driver, I hasten to add. She was the passenger. But she was having a secret relationship with her subordinate, apparently, which is another violation of policy.
Right.
Then got into a physical altercation with the Glendale police officers. Maybe because she wasn't sure where she was or whatever, because she was really obliterated. And yeah, so she eventually got fired, but then was challenged that in the courts and is currently fighting it.
Like, how do you even recover from that? You get fired and you go, no, I shouldn't have been fired. Then you get your job back and you just roll into the office the next day like, you thought you got me. Like, that would be very weird office vibes.
Yeah, we had like the assistant chief accused of putting a surveillance, basically air tags inside his former girlfriend's car, and she accused him of surveilling her, and he got removed, and he sued the department, Or we had the other assistant chief. Oh, you won't believe this. This is the same woman, by the way, in both cases. We had another one who he was they have a special investigations team who follows cops who they think are doing bad things, right? They have a secret surveillance unit they keep off the books. It's called Special Operations Division. And they were surveilling this chief, and they came to determine that he was having a sexual relationship inside a police vehicle with a subordinate. Oh, and they called it into the police chief and other people high up and said, "Hey, we've got your assistant chief, who was then in charge of all the LAPD's operations below the police chief." So yeah, and he of course retired, and his boss told us, I was like, why is he retiring? Is there some reason? Oh, no, he wants to spend more time with his family. Well, I'm sure he does.
Wow.
So, yeah, these constant scandals inside policing involving alcohol, drugs, and female subordinates.
Inappropriate behavior.
Inappropriate behavior. And even then, they don't tend to get fired. They find ways out.
Well, in this case, Eric Halem got fired.
He probably resigned. He resigned from the reserves. But he's got much worse consequence right now. What he didn't realize is they started building a case against him for kidnap.
Wow.
And they put robbery. Here's the difference. So we've been told in the past, investigated by IA. When the insurance thing came down, it came from what they call internal affairs, and someone had told them everything about it. And his own brother seems to be suing him as well, because he apparently wasn't happy with the whole car insurance business.
Because he's looped in now to this.
He's also charged with the insurance fraud. Him and his brother aren't seeing eye to eye. And it gets crazier. Apparently his former attorney is also suing He's suing his former attorney. He's basically alleging that the guy talked to IA about the car insurance.
Wow.
So, yeah. But what he didn't realize was that he was in even more trouble. They knew about all his other sort of strange business. So it's rare. I can think of only a handful of occasions where the robbery homicide division, the people who kind of, capture the really big criminals, the ones we talked about on here over the years, almost all of them are robbery homicide division when it comes to LAPD cases. These are the high profile cases. They don't usually have robbery homicide division on LAPD officers unless they've done something horrific.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what's next for this case?
Well, we're likely going to see a prelim hearing where they set out what is Eric's connection and why is he doing all this? What is his motive? They may tell us a lot more. They almost may reveal more of this what else is going on with Eric.
He is pleading not guilty, so that means that there's potential that this goes into a very long trial. Do you anticipate a plea deal?
I don't know, because he's got a high-end attorney already for the insurance case. When I called his attorneys on vacation, it's, the way it is. He probably...
Imagine being in the position you're in and your attorney is on vacation.
Yes, it's not good when your attorney is probably overseas on vacation in Europe and you are currently sitting in the LA County Jail with no bail because you've been accused of a potential life sentence crime.
Oh, my gosh.
But yeah, and then, of course, everyone around you isn't exactly loving you anymore. Your own attorney, your own brother don't seem to like you.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know who probably doesn't take vacation? Public defenders.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be eligible unless he's lost all that money, because that's definitely not where it's going here. But will he make a plea? If they think they'll probably want to see what evidence they have at prelim before. Yeah, I mean, they're going to try and kick. I mean, if you're sitting there, you're going, all right, I'm going to try and just say this is a robbery. Because the difference between robbery and kidnap is massive.
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah, their goal would be to just reduce the sentence as much as possible. Pleading guilty to the current charges could lead to a much longer time in prison.
Or what they'll do is, and he will have good law. It looks like he has a named lawyer who is like a name. He's going to try and see if he can get that kidnap charge kicked out, and then be just trying at the robbery level, and then he may risk his luck, or he may plea. But the difference between a robbery, and a kidnap is just so massive. It's just look, we knew this was bad. So when he gets first arrested, they won't tell us anything. The LAPD, so when most people are arrested, we call up the LAPD and we have this thing, we say, give us the 9 lines, which they have to, which is like basically why, who, what, where, why, right? Very simple. So firstly, we know that robbery homicide has arrested him. We know robbery homicide only does murder, very high-end robbery, and they used to do sex crimes, but they don't even do that right now. So the stakes are massive, okay? We know it's going to be they don't bother with those people don't bother with anything but choosing a high stakes affair. So there's a long pause, like pretty much half a day of them trying to not say what's going on. We're like, we think he's been involved in some really bad stuff.
Yeah, wow. Well, he'll be back in court in September, and that's when they'll start to lay out what's going on here.
Yeah, or they may reveal other charges or allegations or paint a bigger picture. They've been pretty close to the vest on this. That's always the thing when things happen with cops. They don't tell us. They're much reluctant. But we knew that, this is how it was telltale sign this is really bad. He's arrested on a Thursday. They arrest people on Thursday. They plan to keep them till Monday, for sure, even before they get officially charged. It's kind of like the how can I screw with you? They don't generally do that to cops. Most cops get arrested. They conveniently get bailed out within half an hour.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this one is much more serious, and we will be following along. Richard, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
That's it for LA Crimes. If you like the show, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or by going to latimes.com/podcast bonus. That's latimes.com/podcast bonus. You'll gain access to this week's bonus episode where Richard and I dig into a big break that recently occurred on the case of the break-in to Brad Pitt's house.